Hello, everybody, and welcome to Laugh and Learn Human Design Authorities. This is part 7 with the amazing Jennifer from My Holistic Self. And I'm Tarot Stash. I'm glad you're here. And let's get this started. Thanks for being here. And there it is. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. I am glad to have you here. Thank you. And I was, as I said, human design authorities. This is part 7. So we're finishing up the authorities today.
We are.
And then what's going to happen next? We'll figure it out.
We'll see. There's so many places we can go.
There is a whole lot of places that we can go. So that's been great. And so I do want to remind everybody to please like and subscribe to all of our channels. It does help us because apparently there have been some issues with people being unsubscribed.
Oh, wow.
There you go. And of course, I'm Tarot Stash. And as always, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance, really. And if you're just getting caught up and you haven't seen all of the shows, there is a human design playlist. So that human design playlist, you can take it in small chunks. You can listen to it at faster speed. So I think that's wonderful. So it's a great resource, as well as the links are below to everything, every way to get a hold of Jennifer. And you've done some improvements on your website.
Oh my goodness, I've been busy.
You have been very, very busy. But yeah, so there's that. Okay, so I've been talking a whole lot.
All good.
So let's say hi to some of the best chatters. We have Kaylee Fogo Pogo is here. Hello.
Hello.
Beth Aspasia Rising. Thanks for being here. And Hypnicity. Good to see you. Lottie B. Good to see you. And Mary Hernandez Walker. We have the amazing Zane, Tarot Token Witchery. Good to see you, Zane. And Mousy is here. Thank you for being here, Mousy. And I hope I haven't missed anyone. So this is perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So exciting. Have you guys all here?
Oh, yes. And so, my gosh, we have been talking a whole lot about human design. And it's been fun. And, this all started because I learned that you did human design as part of your work as a therapist. And I was like, well, what is that? And so one thing led into another. But so why don't you introduce yourself to people who may not know you?
Sure. Well, my name is Jennifer, and I am a registered psychotherapist, a certified Canadian counselor, and intuitive life coach. I do energy work and bring in my business, My Holistic Self. The idea is that we really embrace the whole of who we are, mind, body, and spirit.
Yep.
And so bringing it kind of all together. So I bring in, of course, like the, psychotherapy aspects and all of that. But then I bring in a lot of the somatic healing and energy medicine work and, body movement, brain gym, all of that for
Sure.
getting that flow of energy through the body. And then, of course, bringing in all of the spiritual aspects of that, the energy healing and all. And human design just seemed like such a, a perfect fit being introduced to it. Actually having projector, so invitation is really important. Having a client say, "I'd really like you to include this in your session," and everything just kind of went from there. And it's been beautiful.
I love it. That's great.
Mhm.
And this has been fun. It has been a lot of information, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes not, because it's a lot of information to take in. So, but it's all good. It's available, and I mean, just watching something once doesn't mean you're going to understand it.
No.
So,
No. And it's, they say, 7 years of deconditioning and all of that kind of stuff. That's kind of Ra who um, brought in the message from the voice. And, there's a lot to that. And it's not specifically because, um, we don't know who we are in some ways, but we get so caught up in the conditioning and the not self that we have a lot to unlearn before we
yes,
even acknowledge who we actually are. And so
yes.
that's where that idea comes from.
Hmm. Yeah,
Right?
that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Angela is here, Cardamancy Mesquite. Good to see
Hello,
you.
hello.
Angela will be doing caffeinated and unfiltered readings with me tonight.
Ooh, exciting.
That's at 7 Eastern. So,
Very
all
cool.
right. So, shall we get into this and
Yeah.
see what
So
we
I
can do?
guess to get started, I think you talked a little bit about it, but if you guys do want to know your chart information, if you're not already familiar with it, you can pop on over to my website
Mhm.
and download your chart. You're going to get a ton of information for
A
free
lot of
right off the
information.
bat.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to kind of at least understand it, if this applies to you or not. Now we're talking about reflectors and the authority that reflectors have, which is lunar authority.
Mhm.
Reflectors are less than 1% of the population. So
Okay.
if one of you happens to be a reflector, you're very rare in your design. That being said, this really does apply to all of us. And so I think that it's important to kind of take a step back before we jump in and reshare a little bit of added information so that you guys can understand how this applies to everybody,
Yes.
even though we are going to be talking specifically about reflectors
Mhm.
and the lunar authority.
Sure.
Um, okay, so I'm going to start with an image in here.
Okay.
Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to start a little bit with the whole how to read your body graph. And so as you can see, there's going to be a bunch of different things going on that we're going to look at. And I'm going to kind of design one for you
I'm going to
on.
I can put this up there while you talk if that helps.
Yeah, that's fine. But if you could share my
Oh,
screen,
yep.
then I can
There
actually
you
just
go.
do it live, which would be super cool. Okay.
Excellent.
This is exciting because we figured out that I can actually share a screen, which I
Mhm.
hadn't been able to do before.
Yes.
Um, and so what we're going to do is we're going to really just kind of look at what is going on. And then as we go through a little bit about the reflector energy, I'm going to share a bit more. So a reflector's chart is like this in the sense that every single one of these centers is going to stay undefined.
Mhm.
Okay. Whereas every other type is going to have at least two centers defined.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, but they are going to have a whole lot of different gates activated in different ways throughout their chart. Okay. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. There we go. And so you're going to see a chart for a reflector that looks, something along these lines. All right.
Okay.
Now, when we talked about, because we have a talk that we did on the transits. So I talked
Yes.
about neutrinos, I talked about the energy of the transits, how they impact us, why they impact us, all that kind of stuff. And so what I wanted to share here is, for a reflector, the reason that they have a lunar authority, which means that they really need to wait the 28 days in order for them to be able to know for sure if something is correct for them when it comes to decision making for big stuff, right? Is because the moon actually cycles through the entire transit system every 28 to 30 days. Okay. It's like
Correct.
29 point something or other. And so what happens is, during that time, different transits are being activated. And so let's say that this reflector, at one point, the transit shows up and now they're a projector. They are still a reflector, but they are able to sample the energy of being a projector.
Okay.
Okay. So this is super cool in that what happens for the reflector is, the reflector's aura is sampling, right? And so it's constantly sampling the different energies that are showing up. So let's say that, at another point in time, they are activated here. Now, all of a sudden, they're sampling generator energy.
Yeah.
Right? If that is not the case, and then they, get activated here, now all of a sudden they're sampling manifestor energy. Okay. And so this is the change that they go through throughout the month, is that their chart is always adapting to the transit energy. And this is why I say it's important for all of us, because we're all always adapting.
Yes.
Right. And so this part of it really does apply to everybody. For the reflector specifically, they're going to go through all of those different energies. And then as they do, they're going to be able to recognize if the environment is correct for them, if the people that they're with are correct for them. Whereas for the rest of us, we may be impacted, but we're not always impacted, depending on what's going on with the transit. Now, the other piece of this that is really important for all of us to recognize. So let's say we have an open center, right? For all of us, if we have an open center, we're amplifying that energy in that center. Okay. And now let's say, a transit shows up and it now suddenly connects that energy. And we go, oh, okay, I have access to this energy. What happens when we no longer have access to that energy, right? We beat ourselves up. We go, well, I could do it before. Why can't I do it now?
Yeah, it feels like it feels like a loss.
It
So
feels like a loss.
there's stuff that we could do, suddenly we can't do.
Exactly. And then we feel that pressure that we're experiencing. And then we feel like we don't have the ability to release it. And we get very, very caught up in the energies. Okay. So if you want to take this down for now, and we can chat for a bit, and we can always come back to it.
Yeah. There was a question. Do reflectors tend to be claircognizant?
They can. I mean, you've got to remember that a reflector is, with every open center, whenever it's open, we have capacity to really sense what's going on around us and what's going on with other people. And so when we have that openness, we can either get very caught up in the not self theme of it, and that becomes almost like a victim state that we live in
Uh-huh.
with that not self theme, where we're very conditioned. Or it can actually be something that helps us to understand and tap into the energies around us to know if they're good for us or not, if they're safe
Yeah.
or not, if they feel correct or not. Right. And so we talk about, one of the biggest things is that solar plexus, that emotional center, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is defined in that, they are always having an emotional wave. There's that undercurrent is always there for them,
Sure. Yes.
right? Whereas somebody who is undefined is not going to always have that emotional wave.
Mm-hmm.
But when they are around somebody who is defined, they are going to pick up on that emotional energy. But this is where Ra talks about they will pick it up, they will amplify it if they're in their not self to the point
Mm-hmm.
of distortion,
Ah, okay.
right? And so this is the difference between, recognizing the energy and the pull of the energy and the mechanics of all of this versus being very caught up in the conditioning and the not self energy of it.
Mm,
Right. And so when we talk about that unlearning, that deconditioning period, this is why it takes time.
yeah.
Right. I have an undefined solar plexus.
Mm-hmm.
Other people in my household have a defined solar plexus.
Right.
If they are in a mood, I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I feel it to the point of being like, I'm in a mood. And I'm like, I'm not in a mood. I don't
Sure.
care. There's
Yeah.
I'm I'm
Mm,
okay. But I'm reacting sometimes in that mood because I'm just picking it up,
yes.
right? And the problem is that if I don't catch myself, I can amplify that mood back to them.
Yeah. And that
Right?
causes challenges
And
that
that causes
don't
all
need to be there.
kinds of challenges,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
right? And then it's like, ugh, I'm not even upset. Why am I feeling
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
way? And so we can really get caught up in that. I mean, you think about the head center, which is that top center there that I was showing you guys. I can open up to the
This
other
one.
chart again. Up at the very top. Yeah, there you go.
Ooh.
So the crown, the head center. This center has an insane amount of pressure to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, if you think about it, I think it's like 70% or something of the population has an undefined head center. So 70% is trying to figure out stuff that doesn't matter to them.
Ah,
Is
okay.
not able to determine what is true and what is not true when they're in that not self pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they're feeling all of this pressure. And I mean, you think about this energy around, I just need to figure this out and then I can take a break.
Oh, yeah. Just a little bit more. I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
Just
I'm
a
almost
little
done.
bit. I'm almost there. And then
It's
I
always moving.
right. And so this is the energy that we look at. And so, when we think about, you know, again, lunar as an authority, as as we're going through, so because the moon is transiting so quickly, a reflector is very connected to that energy and
Mm-hmm.
very influenced by it. And so what they're doing is they're going through. And so every time there's an activation, they're feeling that new energy.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But this is the other thing I want to share. And why don't we pull that screen up really quick, just
Okay.
one more
Got
time?
it.
Okay. So let's say we're here, right, with this open head center. And we're going, okay, let's say we've got this one defined, right? What we're doing is we're looking at this energy and we're going, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to understand it. But then we're looking at this 47, and this energy is going to keep us captivated because we don't have access to it and the mind wants it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so when we're looking at all of these different things in our chart, we're looking at so much more than just what's there, right? We're looking at the gaps, we're looking at what's not there, we're looking
Hmm.
at, all kinds of different things. If we have a chart like this, now all of that energy is going to be pulled through that 63,
Hmm.
right? Because that 4 is there and it wants so desperately to connect to that 63,
Yeah.
right? All right, so we can take that down again. But
Well,
this is
I want to say, go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, a couple more people have come in. Jules learning to listen, and Roots and Wave Ange has come in. We have Mary has asked a question. Do you think that there are any reflectors in our government, or are they just too monkey minded?
Oh golly, do I even want to touch that?
Well, first of all, my government is different than your government, being that you are in Canada.
True.
So,
Yeah, true. I'd have to pull some charts in the government to kind of see where people are at. The reality is, though, that we so often live from what we're not, right? And that we're always trying to appease that. And
mhm,
so when I think about this kind of stuff, you know, people are making these decisions and where they're coming from is often coming from conditioned mind. It is not coming from what is true. It is not coming from what is authentic. These people are not in these positions, particularly following their strategy and authority. They're in these positions because the mind has brought them there.
mhm,
And, uh, what is it? Einstein says you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem or the same
correct,
level of thinking that created the
mhm,
problem, right? And so we do end up repeating these patterns, and that is the monkey mind,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true. Well, thank you. Okay, so we get this desire to get that energy connection. We get a little bit of a taste of it, and then there's this huge desire to have that.
Hmm.
Uh, do I say that we desire to have something that isn't in our skill set?
Yeah, pretty much. So
Okay.
here we are, right? We've got this chart that is, the reflector chart. It is wide open. And there's all of these activated but hanging or dormant gates,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yes, they're there, but they're dormant. And so, what happens is any gate that we have for any of us, if it's in an open center, it's considered a dormant gate because what's happening is it's hanging there and it's just waiting to be activated,
Mm-hmm.
right? By a transit or another person. And so, as the moon is going through the 64 gates, and transiting all of these planets, harmonic connections are being made for these hanging gates,
Okay.
right? And so that creates this temporary definition. Okay. So, when we talk about, again, this is, like I said, 0.99, 0.98, something like that of the population, it's less than 1%, are following this as an authority. And yet this energy impacts all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we all have hanging gates in our charts,
Yes. Yes.
right? And where, the projector, the manifester, the generator, including the manifesting generator, we're all sun energy, right? Like we're really impacted by the sun and the neutrinos that are coming from the sun. Um, the reflector is the lunar, right? And they're very impacted by the moon. And
Mm-hmm.
so we don't always talk about the moon and the moon's influence on us because the sun has like 70% of the neutrinos that come through, but the
Sure.
moon does still impact us.
Yeah. Well, and the moon impacts us in many, many different ways, not
Exactly.
just many, many ways, including the energy that you're referring to. So,
Right.
because it's such an emotional aspect
Exactly.
for that. So, yeah. Uh,
Exactly. And the moon, I mean, even in human design, The moon is our feelings, it's our instincts, it's in our body. Like we're constantly feeling it, right? That pull, the water,
Yes.
right? And the amount of water that we have in our body and the impact that that has on us. And then, of course, the nodes, which we can get into at another point too, but
Hmm.
they're going to be constantly impacting us and our geometry and where we're going and where we're coming from and all of that.
So then, because there's no defined authority, that was her dog.
Yeah, there's
That was
one
not
here and one there.
tell me. So because there is no defined authority, when the lunar cycle goes through all of those phases, it really activates. Whereas if there were some defined, I would have some sort of grounding per se. Would you say that?
Yeah. So when you think about defined and undefined, what we're really looking at is all of the defined centers are areas where we're consistent in those energies,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And all of the open centers, we don't have a consistent way that we act as the energy of those centers, right? So what ends up happening is whenever something becomes activated, we suddenly have a way that we access that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now for somebody who is fully open and undefined, they're going to really be influenced by the environment that they're in, which is why the mental projectors, which we did last time, and the reflectors are both put in this no inner authority group, right? It doesn't mean that there's no way of internally making decisions. It really has to do with the fact that all of these other centers are not defined. And so the environment is hugely impactful
Yeah.
for them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So important.
Yeah. And it's not to say that the environment isn't important for everybody. Somebody who has their chart, really a lot of definition in it. Um, the environment is still important, but you can walk into a place and walk out of it and go, yeah, I know who I am. And all that didn't change me. It didn't influence me. I just don't care. Right?
Right. But yeah, yes. I mean, because many of us, and as empaths, we get the influences of the environments.
Hmm.
So when you put being empathic on top of human design,
Yeah.
it can be the perfect storm or the worst nightmare
Yeah.
if you don't know how to deal with it.
Right. And I
So,
think this is the big piece about understanding the human design part of it too, is because we begin to understand how much of our experience is just mechanics,
mm,
right? So if, you know, um, thinking even about the energy that we just came through, because we're going to transition today into the next one, depending on where we are. It's like, I think right around midnight or somewhere into the next day.
and you can
Anyway,
find out about that on Twillo Talk, which happens on Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, right?
yes, yes. And we will be talking about the new transit going into the seven, the alpha, some really cool energies there. But yeah, so when we look at, oh, and you can also go on to my passengerconsciousness.ca website.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go into the calendar section, there you'll see the exact transit for this time of day in UTC. So you can address, can figure that out based on wherever you're at. And there's a whole thing there too about how to read the calendar and everything. But you'll be able to see exactly what the transits are at any given moment.
Wow.
So if you want to check that out, go for it. But yeah, so I got sidetracked and my brain just kind of
It's
went, oh,
okay. I just put that passenger consciousness link into the chat
oh,
so people can
awesome.
see it. It's actually linked in the description. So, but
Oh, thank
it's
you.
there. So yeah.
Yeah, so the calendar section, you'll be able to see it. And you'll see what the solar transits are for the month. So you'll see the solar, the earth, and the nodes. And then when we go to the top section, you'll see like all of them for exactly right now. And then if you really are interested in more, you can reach out.
Nice.
Because otherwise I could go on about all of this forever.
Well, it's the enthusiasm there. So, oh, look,
Mhm.
Jacqueline Richards is here.
Oh, hey, Jack.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Yeah.
And why did we lose all the information and have to use our design? Why did we lose all this information and
Maybe
how to use our design? Why
on
did
how
we
to use our
lose?
design, maybe? Yeah. You know, it's interesting because, well, I mean, we can get into the whole stages of humanity and all of the changes that we've gone through and how we've lost so much information that we already
Mm-hmm.
had access to. But really, it's about coming back home to it and coming back home to ourselves.
Yeah. And
And
that's, I mean, that's part of, we could get into deep philosophical conversations about that.
Mhm.
And I think it's fun. Personally, I think it's fun to explore that. That's just how I am. So long as I always like the idea of continue to be curious.
Yeah.
That's what's very important.
Well,
So,
and that's it. And I really get into that place of, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know very much at all. And that is
yep.
okay.
Yep.
And embracing that, not knowing. Um, but okay, so coming back to reflectors, um, again, this kind of not knowing is such a beautiful thing when we're able to actually embrace it, right? Because now here's this reflector who, I mean, they're literally reflecting the moon's frequency on Earth,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And then they're using that to help define their sense of self. And so when we look at it, yes, the reflector throughout the entire month is going through so many different, changes. Like I think it's every like half day or so, right? That the moon is changing where it's at. And so, we as a reflector going through this, it's about it's about following it for the month, but it's about following it month after month after month, because then you get to really see the pattern
Yes.
in the flow,
Yes.
right? You get to really recognize, what, every time we hit this transit, this is what's coming up for me, this is how I'm feeling. um
Yeah.
and so for each of us to be able to recognize that is really, really powerful.
Yes. And so, and a lot of that is simply paying attention and authentically looking at the rhythms and the cycles as an observer.
Yeah.
Mercury went retrograde yesterday on Sunday, August 4th, 2024. And, I know some people who have battened down the hatches and all of that stuff. And it's just like, yes, you can do that, but you know what's coming and you know how you've handled it. So how are you going to do it before? How are you going to do it moving forward? So, yeah. So,
Well, and that's the whole thing. We look at these things and we go, "Oh my goodness, it means this," and "Oh my goodness, it means that." And really, for each of us, it can mean something different.
yes, I am going to throw something tarot related to this. If you read with reversals, the reversed card meaning is not just the opposite of the upright meaning.
Right.
It can mean many things. It can mean that the energy is going to take longer than what you would expect. It means that that time of suffering is over and it's time to move. So, and that's where, as one develops a relationship with tarot or any divination tool, they can use that to help them
Hmm.
follow your intuition with it and the connections that you have. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you. Okay, so let's keep talking. This is great. The Lunar Authority.
Yeah. And so when you think about, again, this idea of reflecting, so when reflectors, I'm going to actually pull this up really quick for you guys, because I think that this is a really neat thing to remember as we go through. When we talk about like the way that the energies interact with one another, did I put it in here? If not, I'll just read it to you. But I thought I put it in here.
Which one are you looking for?
Oh, you know what? I know where I put it. At the beginning of the different types, I put in a section, and it just kind of went through what each one looked like in terms of how they show up for us. So here we go. Let's see if I can hold this up for you guys to see. So
Here, I can embiggen. I'm going to embiggen you.
Okay, embiggen me.
There you go.
There you go. Right? So this is a quote from actually this book, which we've talked about before. And it says, in a perfect world, manifestors get things started. Projectors guide the process. Generators provide the energy to realize or complete it. And reflectors let us know, how do I put it? Tell us how well it is going.
Yes.
Right? And because the reflectors are they're sampling, right? So they're constantly tapping into what's going on around us, and what's going on around them, I should say. And so what happens is if things are going well, they're going to feel well. They're going to feel like things are moving forward. They're going to feel good. If things are not going well, they're not going to feel well.
Yes.
Right. And they're going to really be able to express the health of what's happening around them.
Yes.
Because of that sampling. Right. And so it gives them that ability to kind of judge and evaluate what feels correct and what doesn't. But because they're constantly in this ebb and flow with all of the transits, there's a lot of awareness that has to be present to recognize like what am I tapping into right now, right? And so, it's with reflectors, and I mean we can all take a look at what the moon is doing and what it looks like, but with reflectors, they often will get their own kind of calendar, right?
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's the lunar calendar, and it shows them exactly what the energies are, when they're changing, what to look for, what gate it's in,
Okay.
what center it is in, so what it activates, all of that, and it's really powerful. And each reflector would have their own version of that in order to really understand what the energies are doing, how they're being impacted. And so if you think about this, like it's made such a big deal for reflectors to do this because of how open they are. And yet we all have openness, right? And so we're all going to have this impact on us. Now, granted, some people are going to be more sensitive to it than others.
Yes.
Right? But if we are sensitive to it, then actually being able to pay attention to what's happening around us is going to be really valuable.
Yes. Yeah. Nalani said, can a generator, me, learn to become more of a manifester?
I'm going to say that is the not self wanting to be something other than what it is.
Ooh, and I thwart this with love.
Right?
That's some good awareness. I wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah. We are beautifully and uniquely made. Right? And yeah, okay, 70% of the population is a generator, but every single generator is beautifully unique.
Yes.
Right?
Well, yes, we're all, we have these characteristics, and that's what, and the way we are, our personality comes through and augments and supplements and contradicts our types. And there ain't nothing wrong with any of that.
No. And yeah, okay, manifestors get to, just trailblaze and do whatever, but not really. I mean, poor manifestors. A manifestor walks into a room and everybody goes, "Oh God, what's that manifestor going to do? We better block that manifestor from doing what they want to do because we don't trust what that manifestor is about to do."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, we do recognize that, these signposts that we have access to really are quite valuable in being able to follow our strategy and authority. And so we really have to be, aware of what is ours and what isn't ours.
Yes. And I think it's important to, what is it about the manifestor that you are wanting to have more of? Because oftentimes those are simply habits that you can create and processes that will help you get more stuff done. To so does that make sense? I
Yeah.
mean,
Let's let me change my screen. And I'm gonna deep dive a little bit with you guys.
ooh, fun.
Um,
Tell me when you're ready.
yeah, let me just change this
It's a deep dive,
to
everybody. Make sure you're giving a thumbs up and that you're
this.
liking and subscribing. So,
Okay. I'm just gonna put my name in here just so I'm not showing anybody else's stuff. There we go. Okay. And share this tab instead.
yeah, I'm going to add it. Is that
All
okay?
right. Yep.
Okay.
All right. You guys got that there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is our body graph, right? So this is my body graph that I'm sharing with you guys. Now, what's really fascinating is this is what our mind has access to. This is our personality side. Okay. And this our mind does not have access to. This is our subconscious or our design side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now let's just take a look at that, right? If I were to actually change my chart just to my personality and what my mind has access to, this is what
Mm-hmm.
my mind thinks I am.
Oh, okay.
Right? Do you see how different that is? Right? Now I don't have a defined head or a defined ajna, but man, do I have some pressure in here,
Yeah.
right? My mind doesn't think that it has capacity to organize, right? And it feels like it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be certain. And yet
Mm-hmm.
I have complete access to this energy, but not through my definition for my personality side. So my mind doesn't have access to it.
Isn't that interesting?
Okay. It's fascinating because then what ends up happening is the mind jumps in and goes, okay, so what am I missing? Right. And now suddenly this 47 and this 4 become something that I want or that I long for in my chart.
Mm-hmm.
I want this 45 here. I want, this all of these gates want to be connected. And so what ends up happening, if I go back over here, right? Like I have that 47. That's what
Mm-hmm.
connects the two. And yet my mind doesn't have access to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I find myself caught up in some of these themes and go, okay, what is going on? Why is it that I feel this or that way? I have this gap here. I'm a split definition. I have a gap. So you can see these two are connected, and then the rest of these three are connected. But
Mm-hmm.
these two energy centers are not. So
Oh,
these
interesting.
three gates are huge programming for me.
Uh-huh.
Right. So, what ends up happening is that I get caught up in the energy of these three gates, thinking that these are what I need in order to be complete.
Hmm.
So my mind gets hyper focused on these three
Sure.
areas, even though this is in my unconscious.
And that's a natural thing to have happen.
It's absolutely natural. But
Yeah.
when I look at it and I go, why can't I have this energy? Why don't I have access to this? I have to study more. That's my one, my 1 3. I have to study more. I have to learn more. I have to figure this out. right? In order for me to have this or to complete this energy, if I get caught up in that, I'm not honoring who I am. I'm looking at what I need or what I think I need in order to be complete, right? And that's very much those not self themes. And so we can take that down if you want. But all of that to say, hypnicity, when I made that comment about, what you're asking, that's where that comes from, because so much of us is the mind looking at everything that we're not and going, I need to be that.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to really honoring what we are.
Mm-hmm. And because when we honor and recognize the uniqueness of what we are, who we are, and how we operate, then we know how to get things done within those tools.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I love that. My friend wrote a song called "You Gotta Work with What You Got." Yep. And that's really what human design teaches us, right?
That's right.
When we learn about the mechanics of it and the way that it works, we begin to recognize all of the things that our mind is telling us we need, or that we need to be, that don't really matter.
Yeah.
Right? Or we begin to recognize where, say depression comes from. It's in the charts. It's right there. We can look at it and go, okay, I'm feeling this way. And yet every time this gets activated, that pressure releases. And I'm like, hey, I can actually do a little something with this.
Interesting.
Right? It's a mechanic. And so when we look at it from that perspective, we're not owning these things as much. Right? And there's a freedom now to, and this is my 3 line, to play with it. Right?
Yes.
To experiment with it and to have fun with it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what are some of the key things for us to remember about these rare reflectors that exist in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Actually, I'm going to open this up and share a little bit about, it's just so you guys can get a feel for who some reflectors are.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just because the likelihood of actually, coming across one is not that high, right? And yet we've got Richard Burton, Edward Morique, Dusty Springfield. I'm just trying to go here. Michael Jackson, Rob Lowe, Sandra Bullock. That's a pretty famous name there, right? And so when we look at, their charts, their energy, I mean, like, you take Sandra, I love Sandra Bullock. I think she's fantastic. When you look at some of the experiences that she's been through and things like that, it's very evident, she's been really well when she's been in really good, healthy situations, and very unwell when she's been in very unhealthy situations, right? That ability to truly reflect the energy around you. And we can see it so clearly.
Right.
When we're paying attention to those energies within people. And so, if we were to come across a manifest or a reflector, something really awesome is to see how they respond to us.
Yeah. I mean, and oh, Mary, you're not asking too many questions.
Not at
Mary
all.
asked, what does it look like if you said, I give it up to God and trust in that?
What do you mean? What does it look like?
Yeah, that's we have a follow-up question for you, Mary. And Hypnicity said, I'd rather be a reflector than a deflector.
There you go. Manifestors are deflectors. Just saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's that repelling aura, right? And that's there in order to be able to kind of pave the way. But it's definitely a different kind of energy.
Yeah.
And
part of, I mean, and just, again, this is we're just sharing this because what we're seeing is we're referencing this book, which is the book that you wrote, which has got a lot of good information. We're here to share, not to sell. But it does have a lot of really helpful information in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, your chart.
Yeah.
What did
If I'm understanding what you're asking correctly, when you say, what does it look like? To say, I give it up to God and trust in that. From a strictly human design point of view, the different Godheads and the things that we choose to believe in are actually in our charts in different ways. But what that looks like in our chart specifically could come from a lot of different areas. And so if I'm saying I give it up to God and trust in that, and I actually trust in that, and I leave it there and I walk away, then I'm allowing myself to follow potentially my strategy and authority in saying, you know what, this thing that my mind is telling me I have to push, but my authority is telling me, no, no, wait, no, wait. I'm going to trust that and I'm going to wait and I'm not going to push and make it be this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give it up and I'm going to trust in that, and then I'm still messing with it.
Yeah.
And there's a poem that I'm reminded of. I memorized this when I was a kid. And I still love it. But as children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because he was my friend. But instead of leaving him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. Finally, I snatched them back again and said, how could you be so slow? He said, my child, what could I do? You never would let go.
Yeah.
Right?
So true.
And so this is the energy of it. If we are truly, truly able to just let go, get out of the not self mind that is trying to dictate everything that we do, and begin to step into our strategy and authority and trust that, things change for us, right? They really do begin to shift. But we have to have that faith. And whether that is God, universe, love, light, oneness, whatever that is for you, trusting in that, we're able to take that step back to not try to step in with ways that are our own and go, okay, I'm going to trust my strategy and authority. I am going to trust that the universe has a natural flow and that things are going to move the way that they are meant to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the affirmations for the reflector is, I trust that being in the right space means I am on the right path. So a lot of times there is that sense of if I'm in the right, if I trust that being in the right space, that means that I'm in the right path. I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to stop trying to help. So, yeah. So the ideal board of directors would have one of each types.
Potentially.
Probably more in some, because you got to get stuff done.
Yeah. I mean, now we're getting into a whole other thing. We can get into the BG5 and we can get into a genius report and things like that, because there's so many other kind of pieces. But ideally, yes, in the sense that we're going to be spreading out the energy and what people are able to do. And so, with each aura type, which is just that kind of big classification, we've got all of these different energies. And yeah, we would love to have, at least one of each there to be able to navigate the process. But then depending on, what that definition looks like between them and, and all of that, we may need quite a bit more.
Yes, of course. Of course. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left.
Oh, wow.
And
That went so fast.
it did go really fast. And yes, Kaylee, I did think it was a fan thwarp, but I wasn't going to fan thwarp God. I mean, I would. Yeah, I totally would fan thwarp God. But not goddess. No, just kidding. So,
Well, and again, whatever,
yeah,
word works for you. But just, understanding too, the God within, right? Like when we actually embrace who we are, we have access to divine knowledge. We have access to a deeper understanding of the world around us, and we're not getting in our own way anymore.
correct. Yeah, because we are into our natural flow instead of fighting against it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. One of the things that I appreciated about your book is that if you have a reflector child, that it's important that they grow at their own pace. Don't try to rush them. So, I mean, I think that's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and I do love this, that the overall strategy is one of those one of those things that that a good strategy is waiting a lunar cycle to gain clarity, because if you go through all of those experiences and you understand that that's what you're doing, it
Mhm.
just gives you a 360 view.
Yeah. Well, and what you understand too, like, okay, so think about this, right? A reflector wants to go to a certain area and move there. How
Hmm.
brilliant would it be to go and stay there for a month? See how you feel, right?
Hmm.
Go through all of the transits, see what that feels like for you, see what interactions you have, what the environment is like. But also, not only are you seeing how you feel with all of that, you are seeing how that, at least that moon energy, is impacting everybody
Right.
else around you.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Because a reflector, that's exactly what a reflector does, reflects back the energy that they are experiencing. So, hmm,
Right? So you're getting a really in depth idea of what something or someone is like, allowing yourself to experience that. Now, once you've gone through all of those experiences, now you can take a step back and go, hmm, did I like all of those
yes,
experiences? Is this
yes.
something that I want to repeat?
Hmm.
Right? And if it is, then maybe you choose to stay. And if it is not, you choose something else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mirrors. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, any last minute thoughts about reflectors?
Um, yeah, I mean, we're talking about the lunar authority and the impact on reflectors. And you know, it's such a beautiful thing to wait. The world tells us now. We need to do it
Mhm.
now. We need to decide now. But with a lunar authority and having to wait the 28 days, it also takes what is almost 50% of the world who has a solar plexus as their authority and emotional authority, who also have to wait, not specifically 28 days, but until that emotional wave is hit.
Mhm.
And you go, oh, well, I don't have to wait a whole month at least. I just have to
Yeah,
wait until clarity comes.
yeah, yeah.
Right. I mean,
Mm,
sometimes that is a month. Sometimes that's more than a month. Sometimes
yes.
that's a night. Right.
Mhm.
But I think that, reflectors can reflect for us, the beauty in what it is to be patient, to actually feel into our experiences and honor what those feelings bring up
Mhm.
and hold space for that so that we can understand ourselves more deeply.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as I'm considering this, and I think it's an important thing to, if somebody says, I need time to think about it, be okay with giving them time to think about it. And if this is somebody who is aware, they may offer, I need a good solid month to think about this. And so I think that this is where that awareness of self really strengthens relationships and gives people the ability to, how do I say this? Gives people the ability to be authentically themselves. If I know I'm a reflector and I need to wait 28 days, 29 days, and I tell people that, it gives me an opportunity. I mean, because a lot of times people can say, yes, we can wait that long, or we can't really wait that long. But what can I do to help? Yeah. And then there's more of a conversation. So
Most definitely. And, even that piece of, I don't know that I can wait that long, for a reflector to be able to go, okay, let's see. I'm going to take my time. And if you get to a crunch point, you can come back to me. But if I'm not ready to respond, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to honor that, because we get into fear. Right. And the mind goes, oh, well, if you don't take this opportunity, I mean, I know they're putting pressure on you, but if you don't take this opportunity, it's not going to be good. The mind gets us into so much trouble.
Yes.
So much trouble.
You said it.
Right. But if we were able to go, you know what, same with the emotional authority, if we were able to go, yeah, you know what, I don't have clarity yet. And so that is a no, right? If I don't have that clarity, I can't respond to this.
Yes.
And if you need a response right now, I'm going to have to, regretfully decline.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you want me to come back to you once I have clarity, if you want to come back to me again and ask later, cool. But if that pressure is there and that clarity isn't, that's important. And it's for all of them. I think the sacral as an authority, that gut yes or no, and the spleen, if it's safe or not, are really the only ones that are absolutely in the now when it comes to decision making.
Which ones are?
The sacral, yes or no,
Okay. Yes.
right? Do I want to go out to dinner? Yes. No. Right? And the spleen, which is about survival. Is this safe? Is this not safe? Right? Other than that, all of them need to take some time to reflect on something.
Yes.
Right? The will center has to reflect, like, is this good for me? Right? The G center is, does this light me up? Right? Then the mental, the lunar, and the solar plexus all have to wait for, the mental has to have a sounding board, has to talk it out, has to take some time, right? Same with the G, they have to talk it out too, right? And then, the others that have to wait. And so very, very few of the world's population really know in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sylvia Colorful Foresight came in, and Beth said, the heart's gotten me into some trouble too. And she said, yeah, I think I need more spleen awareness. I'm serious. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it would be interesting too, we look at our chart, but then we can look at like our solar return. Sorry, the dog is just, having an itch. But we can look at, the solar return and see, like, okay, for this year, what is actually activated for me within this return. And there are going to be times where we're more connected to that splenic intuitive awareness, and times where maybe we're not. And so recognizing that, if that's not defined, what's showing up for you, right? And how that plays a role.
And Coyote Rosenbaum 91 is going to watch from the beginning. So
Awesome.
thank you. Thank you. So people can see you tonight or typically on Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. Every Monday at 5 Eastern, we're on Twilio Talk and Authentic Spiritual Conversation. And we're going to talk about the transits. And Tanis talks about kind of the Schumann and where we're at with all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's good.
Excellent.
And then this Thursday, which I don't normally have, but I'm on with Ramsey. And we're doing a talk with the UK, but that's at 2:00 Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to like and subscribe, you'll be able to see that coming up
Nice.
as well, because I'll have that on. I think I'm going to have that on my channel too. I think I can do all the sharing stuff.
Yeah. That's great. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate you being here. Contact information is below for everybody, as well as if you want to support the channel, different ways to do that, including getting a personal reading from me or making a donation. So those are always acceptable and encouraged, but not required. And tomorrow I am doing readings with Sun Psychic Jean and Wisdom Seeker Joan. And then it is back and forth with Jamie and Gerald on Tuesday. We're talking about the sign of Leo. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.